ब्रज देविके च ललिते हे नंद सूनकुतः श्री गोवर्धन पादपतले कालिंदी वने कुतः। Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girimara Sadasyaman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridham ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Please accept our humble obeisance. All glories to great Deva, glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, Kavicandra Maharaj.
Hear me now, right?
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Meeting just disappeared. Okay, there you are.
Hare Krishna.
Can you tell me the slogan?
Okay, I'm going to put it on the screen. It's 113, verse 3 and 4.
Jai, Jai Damodar Maharaj ki Jai. 1, 13, 3 and 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Nayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desa Tarini. Tam Bandum Agatam Drishtva Dharmaputra Sahanuja Dhritarashtra Yuyutsus Cha Sutta Sharadvata Prita Gandhari Draupadi Brahman Subhadra Chotara Kripi Anyas Cha Jamaya Pando Gataya Susuta
Sasuta
Striya
Striya
Gandhari Draupadi. Go back. Tam bandhum agatam drishtva
Tam bandhum agatam drishtva
Dharmaputra sahanuja
Dharmaputra sahanuja
Dhritarashtra yuyutsuscha
Dhritarashtra yutsuscha
Sutat sharadvata prita
Suta Shadvata
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Subhadra Chotara Kripi
Subhadra Chotara Kripi
Anyascha Jamayor Pandor
Anyashka Jamayo Pandu
Gataya Sasuta Striya.
Yataya Sasuta
Anyone else?
Ambandum Agatam Drishtva Dharma Putra Sahanuja
Dharma Putra
Dhritarashtra yuyutsuscha
Dhritarashtra Yutsucha
Saradvata Pita
Sutta Saravata Pita
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Gandhari Draupadi Brahma
Subhadra Chotara Kripi
Subhadra Kotara Kripi
Anyascha Jamaya Pandu
Anyascha Dhamaya Pando
Yataya Sasuta Striya
Nataya Sasuta Striya
Tam bandhum agatam drishtva
Tambadum
Agatam Drishtva
Dharma putra sahanuja
Dharma
Dharma Putra Sahanuja
Dhritarashtra yuyutsucha
Dhritarashtra
Shusha
Suta saradvata preta
Sutta
Sadvata Pita
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Subhadra Chutara Kripi
Subhadra Chotara Kripi
Anyascha Jamaya Pando
Anyascha Jamaya Pandu
Jataya Shashuta Striya
Yataya Sasuta Striya
Ambandum agatam drishtva
Tam bandhum agata shristva
Drishtva
Dharma putra sahanuja
Dharma Putra Sahanuja
Dhritarashtra yuyutsuscha
Dhritarashtra
Dhritarashtra
Suta Sharadvata Prita
Suta Saradvata Pita
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Subhadra Shotara Kripi
Subhadra Chotara Kripi
Anyascha Jamaya Pandur
Anyascha Jamaya Pandur
Yataya Sasuta Sriya
Yataya Sasuta Striya
Ambandum agatam drishtva
Ambandum Agata Drishtva
Dharma Putra Sahanuja
Dharma
Dharma Putra Sahanuja
Dhritarashtra Yuyutsucha
Dhritarashtra yuyutsucha
Sata Saradvata Pita
Suta
Saradvata
Saradvata
Pita
Preta
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman,
Subhadra Chakrakriti,
Bhadra Stotara Kriti,
Anyasta Janmaya Pandu,
Anyasya Jamaya,
Nataya Sasudasya,
Gyataya Sasuta Priya,
Tambandumagatam dristva
Tambandum Agatam Dristva,
Dhamma putra sahanuja
Dharma Putra Sahanuja,
Ditarastro yuyususcha
Dhritarashtra Yudhishthira,
Sutta sadvata prita
Sutta
Paprika,
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman
Gandhari Draupadi Brahman,
Subhadra Chotara Kripi
Rajputara Kriti,
Ananyascha Jamaya Pando Nataya Sasuta Striyaha
Sasuta Priya.
All right. Tam,
Tam,
him,
him,
bandum,
Bandung,
relative,
relative,
agatam,
Agatam,
having arrived there,
having arrived,
drishtva,
Drishtra,
by seeing,
by singing,
dharma putra,
Dharma Putra,
Yudhishthir,
Yudhishthira,
saha anuja,
Saha Anuja,
along with his younger brothers,
along with his younger brother,
Dhritarashtra,
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 Sharadvata, Kripacharya, Rita, Kunti,
Pita Kunti,
Gandhari, Draupadi,
Gandhari, Draupadi,
Brahman,
Brahman,
all Brahmanas,
O Brahmanas,
Subhadra,
Subhadra,
Subhadra, Cha, and Uttara,
Uttara,
Kripi,
Creepy,
Anyaha,
Anya,
others,
Other,
Cha,
Cha,
and
and
Jamaya,
Jamaya,
wives of the other family members,
wives of
right
the
to other family members,
Pando,
Panda,
of the Pandavas,
of
the
the
Pandavas,
Yataya,
Yatya,
family members,
family members,
Sutaha,
Sasita,
along with their sons,
along with their sons,
Striya, the ladies.
the ladies.
When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthira, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, and many other wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period. Purport. Gandhari, the ideal chaste lady in the history of the world. She was the daughter of Maharaj Subala, the king of Gandhara, a kingdom encompassing what are now the cities of Kandahar and Kabul. That's in Afghanistan. And in her maiden state, she worshipped Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is generally worshipped by Hindu maidens to get a good husband. Gandhari satisfied Lord Shiva, and by his benediction to obtain 100 sons, she was betrothed to Dhritarashtra, despite his being blind forever. When Gandhari came to know that her future husband was a blind man, to follow her life companion, she decided to become voluntarily blind. So she wrapped up her eyes with many silk linens, and she was married to Dhritarashtra under the guidance of her elder brother, Shakuni. She was the most beautiful girl of her time, and she was equally qualified by her womanly qualities, which endeared her to every member of the Kaurava court. But despite all her good qualities, she had the natural frailties of a woman, and she was envious of Kunti when the latter gave birth to a male child. Both the queens were pregnant, and Kunti first gave birth to a male child. Gandhari became angry and gave a blow to her own abdomen. As a result, she gave birth to a lump of flesh only. But since she was a devotee of Vyasadeva, the lump was divided into 100 parts, and each part gradually developed to become a male child. Thus, her ambition to become the mother of 100 sons was fulfilled, and she began to nourish all the children according to her exalted position. When the intrigue of the Battle of Kurukshetra was going on, she was not in favor of fighting with the Pandavas. Rather, she blamed Dhritarashtra, her husband, for such a fratricidal war. She desired that the state be divided into 2 parts for the sons of Pandu and her own. She was very affected when all the sons died in the Battle of Kurukshetra, and she wanted to curse Bhimasena and Yudhishthira. But she was checked by Vyasadeva. Her mourning over the death of Duryodhana and Dushashan before Lord Krishna was very pitiful, and Lord Krishna pacified her by transcendental messages. She was equally aggrieved at the death of Karna, and she described to Lord Krishna the lamentation of Karna's wife. She was pacified by Srila Vyasadeva when he showed her dead sons. She then they were promoted to the heavenly kingdom. She died along with her husband in the jungles of the Himalaya, near the source of the Ganges. She burned in a forest fire. Maharaja Yudhishthira performed the death ceremony of his uncle and aunt. Pretty much covers everything about Gandhari. It's another, and her brother is Shakuni, and when Bhishma actually went to seek her hand to marry Dhritarashtra, so when he came, Shakuni thought it would be Pandu, but when it was Dhritarashtra who was blind and not the rightful king, and Shakuni became very angry. So that's one of those reasons why he's so much against Pandavas. And then she had these 100 sons. It says here that she was not so favorable, but she would advise Dhritarashtra different, but Dhritarashtra always followed Duryodhana. He was too much attached to his first son. That was his fault. And otherwise, he was very powerful. He was educated, along with all the rest of them. So that she's considered very chaste because she didn't try to be superior to her husband. She covered her eyes. Then at this time when they all went out to the battlefield and were picking up the dead bodies, and she was very angry at Krishna. She said, Krishna, you could have stopped this. You're the Supreme Lord. Why did you let this happen? And Krishna gave a very interesting answer. He said, it's their karma. I couldn't do anything. So then she said, all right. And she cursed Krishna. And that after 36 years,
Guru Maharaj,
his family would
see
fight
you.
amongst themselves and all kill each other. And Krishna said, thank you. I was wondering how I could, remove the Yadu family. They were too powerful. No one could defeat them. And he was afraid when he left, they would become proud and people would worship them too much. So that was Draupadi. That was Gandhari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please,
camera is not
your
on.
video is not on yet, please.
Okay, is everybody hearing me all right?
We can hear you, yes. But we cannot see you.
Yeah, I'm turning it on now.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Coming from Mayapur, I wish. Wish. Prita, daughter of Maharaj Surasena and sister of Vasudeva, Lord Krishna's father. Later, she was adopted by Maharaj Kunti Bhoja, and she was known as Kunti. She's the incarnation of the success potency of the personality of Godhead. In other words, Lakshmi. The heavenly denizens from the upper planets used to visit the palace of King Kunti Bhoja, and Kunti was engaged in their reception. She also served the great mystic sage Durvasa, and being satisfied by her faithful service, Durvasa gave her a mantra by which it was possible for her to call any demigod she wanted. As a matter of inquisitive, she once called for the sun god, who assured her, who wanted couplement with her. And she declined. He wanted to give her a child. The mantra was actually for getting a child from the demigod. She didn't know that when she got the mantra. She thought they would just come and she could have darshan or something. As a result of this, she became pregnant, and Karna was, he said, it's quite mysterious. He assured her immunity from virgin adulteration. So it wasn't like normal pregnancy like we have, which have to physically connect. The demigods, they don't need to do that. They can just, by the mind, the woman can become pregnant. And there's some interesting, and Karna is a very sad case. So she agreed, and the baby was born right away, actually, out of her ear. That's why he's called Karna. And then she was a virgin girl again. Being afraid of her parents, she quitted the newly born child, Karna. After that, when she actually selected her own husband, she preferred Pandu to her husband, to be her husband. Maharaj Pandu later wanted to retire from family life and adopt the renounced order. Kunti refused to allow her husband to adopt such life, but at last Maharaj Prithu gave her permission to become a mother of sons by calling some other suitable personalities. Everybody knows it. I don't know what he was planning when he left, and he left Dhritarashtra in charge, but it wasn't like a permanent situation that he would be the real king. But then in the forest, he was hunting, and there was 2 deer, and they were just mating, and he killed the deer. And then they turned into sages. And they were sages that took the form of a deer to enjoy that mating. some, mysterious thing. So they cursed him that if he ever tried to, connect with his wife, he would die. So then he wanted to have children, so he convinced Kunti to use the mantra. And they had the first Yudhishthira, then Arjuna, and then Bhima. And Kunti wouldn't do it anymore. She said 3 times is emergency, that's enough. Then the second wife, Madri, so he asked Kunti to give the mantra to her, or do it on her behalf. Another mysterious thing. So she thought Kunti will be envious and, she won't let me have more children than her. So she called for the Ashwini Kumaras, the twins. So she got 2 sons, Sahadeva and Nakula. So Pandu convinced her, and in the proper culture, it's that even in the Mahabharata, one of the questions Yudhishthira asked, because he's the king, he has to know how to deal with everything. He said, what if a man gets married, and after he gets married, he finds out the woman is pregnant? Then who will be the father of the child? And the answer is that the father who takes care of the child, raises him, he's the father, not the seminal father. So Pandu raised them, so they're called Pandavas. So the mantra, she got Dharmaraj and Yudhishthira, and then she called for Indra and got Arjuna. Madri had the other 2 sons. Later, he died at an early age. Kunti fainted, and she was so aggrieved. He died because he got too carried away and he tried to have sex with Madri, and then he died. The curse worked. So Kunti fainted, and both of them wanted to jump in the fire with their husband. They were so attached. This was not a forced thing. The women felt like they couldn't live without their husband. Any women in the audience that feels like that? They would feel more painful to be alive without their husband than jumping in the fire. That's how it was. They didn't feel pain in the fire because they knew they're going to go to heaven with their husband. So they both wanted to do it, but because the children, they were young children, they were like elementary school age or something. So somehow they made the deal that Kunti would live and take care of the children and Madri would go on the fire. And the great sages agreed with that, like Shatasringa and others that were there. Later on, when the Pandavas were banished from the kingdom by the intrigues of Duryodhana, Kunti followed her sons, and she equally faced all sons. So that's a little history. Later on, when they were banished from the kingdom by the Duryodhana's intrigues, they offered him another place and they built a new house for him, but it was a death trap. Kunti followed the sons, and she faced all the trouble in the forest and exile and all these things. One demon girl, Hidimba, he wanted Bhima as her husband. Bhima had killed her brother, the Hidimba demon. He's a Rakshasa. And then she fell in love with Bhima. Bhima refused. He said, I can't get married because Yudhishthira is not married. That's also Vedic culture, that the older brother has to get married before the younger brother can get married. And there's all kinds of, rules. But I think Vyasadeva even came and he said, no, he should marry her. So the girl begged Yudhishthira, and Yudhishthira ordered Bhima to accept her proposal. And they had a son, Gatotkacha, who was a very powerful, because he's had all Rakshasa powers. And Gatotkacha he helped them very much when they had to go very, very far in the forest. He carried them, the weak ones, carried everybody, because he was so powerful, he could grow very big. And then in the Battle of Kurukshetra, he came, I don't know if he came before, but anyway, just, he got in a fight with Karna. Karna had made a deal when Indra came to beg his armor that would protect him from death. He was born with this armor that would protect him from death, but he got injured, but he couldn't be killed. But he didn't exactly give it to Indra. He made a deal that Indra would give him this Shakti weapon that could only use it once and it would go back to Indra, but it was guaranteed to kill, 100% guaranteed to kill. So he would join the battle and he would be fighting, so much because, he was killing so many people. And many were gathering, attacking him. And it was meant for Arjuna. He was saving it for Arjuna. And every day he would forget, by Krishna's arrangement, he would forget to fight with Arjuna. And then, so they told him you have to use that weapon, and we have to kill Arjuna, otherwise we can't win. And then Gatotkacha came, and he got in such a furious fight with Karna. Karna was defeated, but he threw that weapon, he killed Gatotkacha. And then the weapon went back to Indra, so he didn't have it anymore. And then Krishna was dancing and joyfully dancing and embracing all the Pandavas, and they were thinking, why you did that, He's like our brother, And Krishna said, well, he was acting like a Rakshasa, he was making a lot of trouble for people. So I had to get it. So then they lived with a Brahmin family. And these are all Mahabharata, maybe everybody knows it, fascinating stories. They lived a very pious Brahmin family, and they would disguised as Brahmanas. They were living in Ekachakra, which later Lord Nityananda was born there. It's in Bengal, about 5-hour drive from Mayapur. And Kunti heard the family arguing in a very distressed way. And, they were saying, no, I should go, and a different, no, I should go, no. And so Kunti asked, what's going on? And they said, there's this big Rakshasa, he lives in the mountain, and he used to come and just attack the village and just plunder. So they made a deal with him, and every so often they give a big cartload of food and one human for him to eat. And it's our turn. It was a big city, so it took a while. So they were arguing who should go, the mother, the father, the daughter, the son. Kunti said, don't worry about it, my son can go. And they were saying, no, you're our guest, you can't. She said, no, it's all right, don't worry. So she told him, Yudhishthira was mad, how can you do that? You didn't consult with us. So Bhima, they loaded up this buffalo cart, a bullock cart, with so much food, and Bhima went off to deliver it. Bhima got to the outside the cave of the guy, and Bhima just started, he was hungry because they were always begging. And they had a deal that all 5 of them would go out begging, and then half would they give to Bhima, because Bhima had a special stomach and was always hungry, like a wolf, unlimited power. And so Bhima just started eating everything, and this Rakshasa became really angry. Who are you eating my food here? He tried to attack Bhima. Bhima just kept pushing him away with his left hand and kept eating. And Bhima, and then they had a big fight. Bhima killed this Rakshasa, stuffed his head down inside his body, stuffed his legs and hands down inside his body like a turtle, and threw him by the gate to the city. And when everybody saw that, they were really happy. I don't know if they knew Bhima did it or not. So then they heard about Draupadi. So somebody came and told him about Draupadi's son, Swayamvara. So Kunti told Yudhishthira to go there, and Arjuna won the contest and got Draupadi. Draupadi was born in the sacrificial fire. She just came out of the fire, full grown, and her father wanted a daughter that could marry Arjuna. But when they came home, Kunti was in the other room, and they said, wait till you see what we got today, begging. And she said, whatever it is, you have to share it between you. Because that was their deal. Whatever anybody got, they would put it all together when they're begging and then distribute it. So even if someone collected really big. And they went home. Gradually, it was revealed that they were the Pandavas. Then the battle, finally, after so many troubles, the battle of Kurukshetra came. And before the battle, she told Karna, actually, Krishna told Karna, he's the son of Kunti, and if he would just join the Pandavas, he could be the king. But he refused, he had his loyalty. So then after this, Vidura came home, and then Kunti went to the forest with Dhritarashtra, and they all died in the forest. They did severe tapasya. She would eat only every 30 days. Then she sat down and burned to ashes in the forest fire. So these are not ordinary people. We can't imitate them, that's for sure. But they're very dear to Krishna. And they're demigods. Then Draupadi, the most chaste daughter of Draupada, and part incarnation of the goddess Sachi, the wife of Indra. Maharaj Drupada performed a great sacrifice under the superintendence of the great sage Yaja. So he wanted a son to kill Duryodhana, that's a whole other intrigue, and to kill Dronacharya, and a daughter to marry Arjuna. So they both were born out of the fire. They weren't babies. They came out whole, grown up. So she's called Panchali because that's a kingdom. So they all married her. They didn't know if it was all right, but they called Vyasadeva, and then he gave many examples from the history. And the history of Draupadi was, in the previous life, she was worshiping Lord Shiva to get a good husband. That's what the girls do. So any women in the audience, you want a good husband, you worship Shiva. So she had many children. Well, she had one son from each of the Pandavas. Their names are here: Prativindya, Sutusoma, Shutakirti, Satanika, and Shutakarma. She's the most beautiful lady, equally to Kunti. And when she was, her birth, it came from the sky, she would be called Krishna. She was dark, like the same color as Krishna. But it's Krishna because she's a female. And it said she's born to kill many Kshatriyas. So she was worshiping Lord Shiva very intensely. And Lord Shiva came and he said, well, what do you want? And she was so excited. She said, I want a husband, I want a husband, I want a husband, I want a husband, I want a husband. So Lord Shiva said, all right, you'll get 5 husbands. And then she said, no, I just want one. But Shiva said, no, you asked 5 times, so you're going to get 5 husbands. So she got all, and that's a whole long story, who they were in previous lives and who she was. And so it's a Swayambara. She's a Kshatriya, you choose her own. So she chose Arjuna, who was the only one who could win the contest anyway. So the king gave many very opulence to them. And then Drishtadyumna, he followed them home back to the village, and he heard the way they were talking and everything, knew they were the Pandavas. They weren't Brahmanas. They came dressed as Brahmanas, and by the Yogamaya, some people didn't recognize them. They lost her in the gambling, but Krishna saved her when they tried to make her naked in front of everybody. And Prabhupada explains that that's why the Kuru dynasty was annihilated, because of the offense to Draupadi. Very dangerous, offending a great lady. Same thing with Ravana, because he he did bad to Sita. Ravana lost his entire kingdom, so dynasty. When she was captured by a demon, and Bhima saved her. When they lived incognito, the brother of the king, he tried to, Draupadi had said she was a very dangerous woman to have around, because she was so beautiful. Every man would just go completely mad to want her, association. And so this very powerful brother of the king, he wanted Draupadi. So she agreed to meet him night in the garden. And she went to Bhima and told him. So Bhima dressed in a sari, and he was sitting on the bench, with his head covered. And this Kichaka came, and he tried to grab her, thought it was Draupadi, and took her hand or something. And then Bhima stood up, and they had a really ferocious fight. He was one of the powerful men on the planet. and Bhima killed him. He did the same thing. He stuffed his head and down in his body and his arms and legs. Everything disappeared. It just goes on and on. And her 5 sons were killed, the Pandava's sons. And finally, she went with them to, when they left, and followed them up to the Himalaya and died on the way. But when they got to the heavenly planets, they saw her as Lakshmi in the heavenly planets. So a lot of information here. You can get some idea what an ideal people are. Then Subhadra, daughter of Vasudeva and sister of Krishna. She had a different mother, not Yasoda, or not Devaki. So she was very dear to Krishna Balaram, and that's Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram. She went with them on that trip. It's very important for us, Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram. So Balaram was going to arrange her marriage to Duryodhana, but Krishna had already arranged, she wanted to marry Arjuna and Arjuna wanted to marry her. So Krishna told Arjuna what to do. So Arjuna, he took a disguise as a sannyasi, and he came to the house of Balaram. And Balaram greeted him and took care. And the culture was that the young girls take care of the sannyasi guest. So they fell in love. And Krishna was actually just telling Balaram, you should be careful. This sannyasi doesn't look quite right, Balaram was, no, there's no problem. So all of a sudden, the chariot of Krishna appeared, and Arjuna and Draupadi and Subhadra got on the chariot and drove away. Subhadra was driving the chariot and Arjuna was fighting. Balaram was very angry, but then Krishna told him, said, look who's driving the chariot, this is what she wanted. So then Balaram agreed. Kidnapping of Subhadra. So that's the end of that purport. So we'd all like to hear about great personalities. Biographies are, very popular, and many people say, you get great inspiration by reading biographies of great people. I don't know any names of famous Nigerians or Ghanaians or anything from the past, but you have them and you study them in school. Every culture has, and they usually put them on the money, and in America nowadays they put the current politicians on the money. So we can hope by meditating on these people and hearing about them and these amazing activities, understand something of the inconceivable nature of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM and Krishna and all his associates. They're all demigods that came. All right. So any comments, any realizations, these questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Maharaj. lots of history. Kavikanda Prabhu, you may unmute and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the history, the biography of all this, the Pandavas and the mother. Great story, inspiring. So, Guru Maharaj, because of your explanation in your lecture, you mentioned about Draupadi. in her previous life, she worshipped Lord Shiva, and because she requested for her husband 5 times, she got the Pandavas. So my question is
young
that
girl says such things.
Guru Maharaj said?
She didn't ask for, she just got so excited, she said it 5 times.
Okay, Guru Maharaj.
Anyway.
Okay. So the question is that, Guru Maharaj, we even also in many past time also we hear about the devotee worshiping Lord Shiva and ultimately coming to Krishna. But somehow or the other, in Krishna consciousness, we don't encourage any of this worship. Even though we know that Lord Shiva is a great devotee, still we don't encourage. Even though also there is a prayer of Lord Ganesh in Brahma Samhita, and one time also the devotee wanted to Prabhupada, want to worship Ganesh, Prabhupada discouraged. Even though we know about this great personality and how they worship Krishna, still we discourage devotees from worshiping them. So my question is that how did Draupadi even worshiping Lord Shiva in her previous life? She in the present life she got so much intimate association with Krishna.
Who Draupadi?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, Draupadi, yes. She got so much intimate with Krishna and she was very close to Krishna, even though she worshipped Lord Shiva in her previous life.
Yeah. Well, she was worshiping Shiva to get a husband. That's the Vedic culture. The demigods, there's specific things. But Lord Shiva can give the benediction of Krishna. No other demigod can. But Prabhupada, we have enough trouble already, so he didn't just worship Krishna, You can get everything, whatever the demigod can give you, it comes from Krishna anyway. So if you worship Krishna, you satisfy all the demigods. So we don't want to get, if it's somebody that's already worshiping Lord Shiva, then we can try to teach them to offer Krishna Prasadam to Lord Shiva and chant Hare Krishna, which Lord Shiva likes. Then they can, gradually come to Krishna. So the gopis also worship Katyayani, Durga to get Krishna as their husband, but what their object was, but that's the way they did things in those days. They worshipped all those gods, but they really only wanted Krishna. So better we don't get too much attached like that. All right.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Yes. I was just thinking that maybe it's easier to get Krishna through the demigods. That's what I was asking.
No, it's easier through the Guru and just chant Hare Krishna. Through the parampara. With Lord Shiva, you might get distracted, but he can give you the universe, if you worship him good enough. He can kill your enemies, we'd have dangerous to get distracted into that.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Shikadev Prabhu, please, you be on mute and go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for the wonderful class. It was very, very interesting. I was very, very joyful listening to it. In the discourse, Maharaj, you did make mention of where Subhadra, Arjun, took Subhadra and they were both running away. And also we do hear that even Krishna himself, when Rukmini wrote him a letter to come and kidnap him from her father's place. Now, in this day and age, in the modern day and age, we do hear situations whereby a girl runs away with her lover, away from her family, and the society frowns upon it. But we are seeing here that Shubhadra is running away with Arjun without taking the consent of her family in whole general, but she's running away and she's happy. But why is it that in this day and age, if this is what is there, why is it that now when a girl runs away from her home with her boyfriend or her lover, the society frowns on it? This is my question, Maharaj.
Well, she was, it was ordered by Krishna for Arjuna to kidnap her, and arranged by Krishna that they would become, that he told Arjuna to disguise himself and stay in the house of Balaram, and that, so they were always seeing each other and flirting around, and so, and that, but this is Krishna Leela, it's not an ordinary thing where the girl's just running away for sex or money or, whatever reason. It wasn't like some illegitimate thing. It was Krishna's arrangement. Krishna can do things like that. Krishna also danced with all the gopis, and Krishna had 16,000 wives. And so many things Krishna can do that no one else can do. So he arranged it. And Krishna is her brother. She didn't know that Krishna arranged it, but she probably knew when the chariot was Krishna's chariot that came, and they went away in Krishna's chariot. So then she knew. This is Krishna's arrangement. And she wanted to marry Arjuna anyway. So Krishna didn't want to argue with Balaram or try to go against him. So he arranged this, which is the normal Kshatriya way of marriages. Kidnapping and big wars and all kinds of things. All right.
Thanks, Maharaj. Thank you.
What else you have, Sadhu?
Maharaja, I have one question. It appears from the readings of this text that as much as women by nature are very loving, they also do not like to share. Kunti was not very happy that she was going to share the mantra given to her by Durvasa Muni with Madri, and Madri, being fearful that she might not get it the second time, called the Ashwini, so that if even she does not get it the second time, she already has two. So if that happens to be the case, why does the Vedic literature approve of polygamy? When the scriptures note that women actually do not want to share, they do not want to share a man. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, you mean why a man can have many wives?
Yes.
It's very rare that a woman can have husbands, more than one husband. But Vyasadeva, in this case, it's Krishna's arrangement. It's also that she got the blessing of Lord Shiva, and no one can go against that. And then Vyasadeva gave some examples from history of such things, but it's very rare. But a man can have many wives because usually there's more women than men. Women have to be married, and then there's a certain percentage of men who don't get married. So to take care of all the women, a man can have many wives. But even nowadays, that's not so common because there's very few men that are capable of taking care of even one wife.
Yes.
Like Bhakti Tirthamaraja, when he used to have that festival at Gitanagari, and the one I went to, I don't know, a bunch of householders have been married for some time. They got like applauded and honored because they had stayed married and taken care of each other, because that's a big accomplishment in Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada didn't want us to, of course, local law in most countries is illegal to have more than one wife. But that's why if the man has to be capable of taking care of him, and then there's a whole science of, the second wife has to be a lower status than the first wife, and so many things.
Mm.
And when Krishna married those girls, they begged him, and nobody else would marry them because they thought they were polluted.
Thank you, Maharaj. Anyone else? Devotees? Anyone else with? Maharaj, we missed you last month. So we're happy to see you this month. Any questions? Oh, okay. Narayani Devi, please, you may unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. Thank you for your wonderful class. I was late to join the class, but I have a question. My question is, why do Balaram want Duryodhana to marry Subhadra? That's why all this drama begins.
Maybe he thought that, we don't know exactly all the reasons, because Balaram is the same as Krishna. We don't know if he really wanted it or not, or he just wanted to create this whole scene. But Duryodhana was a very good disciple of Balaram. He was, to learn the club fighting. And Duryodhana was really devoted and completely humble and everything. So Balaram saw all his good, in front of Balaram, he exhibited only good qualities. He was a very, he was cultured, educated man, but he just had that, something wrong, but, in front of Balaram, he behaved very nicely. Balaram, sometimes he told Krishna, it's only because you're so attached to Arjuna that you can't see the good qualities of Duryodhana.
Oh.
Arjuna never hated Duryodhana. Duryodhana always hated Arjuna.
Mm.
And wanted to get rid of all the Pandavas.
Thank you.
But like people ask, why is Krishna do this? We can't say that we know why Krishna did something, because whatever Krishna does is many reasons, many results come. Like, why is Krishna blue? I was told about his first temple. Prabhupada, he looked at the deity, said, you can ask him, he's here. All right. Duryodhana was, when Bhima killed Duryodhana, and Arjuna was mad also because it was unfair. He hit him below the belt. But then Krishna explained that there was Bhima's vow, and a Kshatriya vow has to be finished. And he said he would break his legs like that because he had asked Draupadi to sit down on his lap in the public. And now you're mine, part of my harem, And so Bhima cursed him. He took a vow. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Gurudev.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Krishna Prabhu, please unmute and go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, member of obeisances. My question is, in the course of the lecture, you mentioned that it was tradition for the maiden to serve a sannyasi when he comes to somebody's house. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not allow women to come close to him to pay obeisances.
That was a different culture.
And today in our time, it's like we are practicing what was formerly tradition, that women cook for sannyasis, serve sannyasis. My question now is this Kali Yuga time equal to former time when women were serving sannyasis than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's period, when they were not allowed to come close? Hare Krishna.
Well, at the time of Krishna, that was a whole other culture. And so we don't know, like when we talk about Vedic culture, and we don't know what Vedic culture was. So at the time of Lord Chaitanya, he was following very strictly the Smarta Brahman. And he was also setting an example for all future sannyasis. So the culture is that the girls don't come close, really. When I first went to India, if we were in an Indian house, and the young girls would see that even a brahmachari, on the stairway, they would go back down the stairway and get out of the way. And even when I went in Bangkok, and not anymore, but when I first went there, if a monk gets on the bus, all the girls in the back, they get up and move for the monk to get the seat. They don't, and they leave it, not anymore though, but and the Indian girls in their house, they don't do that either. So it's still bona fide for the Maharajas to cook for the sannyasi, but intimate association shouldn't be there. Lord Chaitanya strictly kept his distance, But he dealt with householder couples and wasn't. But he was showing the example for sannyasis. You have to be very, very careful, because butter and fire, not only sannyasis, brahmacharis, even householders, they have their wife, doesn't mean they can freely just associate with any woman just because I'm a householder. But what goes on in the time of Krishna culturally is we can't do now. There's another world, Like Prabhupada, Govinda Dasi was his main secretary for some time in the early days. But her husband was there also all the time. All right.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Anyone else?
I'm not sure if His Holiness Bhaktidhara Damadara Maharaj is still here.
24.
Yeah. Maharaj, do you have anything else to say?
24 participants.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother cooked for him. Sita Devi, Adwaita Acharya's wife, cooked for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yep.
Regularly.
Yeah, well, the mother, and then Adwaita Acharya and Sarvabhauma also.
Yes.
But the men were there. They cooked, but the men served. Sachimata, she cooked for everybody. Of course, she cooked for her son. But after he went to Puri, then she wasn't there. She just worshipped him as a.
Went to cook for her in Adwaita Acharya's house many times.
Yeah, when he came back, after he took sannyas, when he came back, he stayed there for some time, and Sachimata cooked for everybody and for him, and talked intimately, but it's his mother. That's different. But
he embraced her many times.
Huh?
But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced her many times.
Yes.
Mhm.
But we should be careful. Cooking is one thing although I think there's one or two sannyasis in our movement that won't eat if a woman cooked. But Prabhupada never had that example, that's for sure. He taught the women to cook. I don't know any man, a few men he taught to cook his servants. But he in the beginning, he taught women to cook. Because that's their nature. And he was in the kitchen with. But Prabhupada was also a totally renounced old man. All right?
Hare Krishna.
Just as long as you're there, Maharaj. I missed that meeting on Saturday morning. I wonder if there's a recording of it.
Yes, Maharaj, it was recorded.
Can you send it to me?
Okay, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Maharaj, we learned that His Grace Jananivas Prabhu, your god brother, of course, we know for some time he's not been doing very well. So we begging that you and all the assembled devotees pray for him because we need.
I'm not following. You started kind of mumbling.
I'm saying Jananivas Prabhu is not doing very well.
So, I haven't heard anything for a while. He was, last I heard, he was out of the hospital and the surgery went well. And
yes, so we're praying and then asking the devotees to pray for him because.
Yeah, we should pray for everybody. So many devotees.
Yeah.
You should pray for everybody. His spiritual life is certainly fixed up, but it's got some, I don't know what, some blockage somewhere, but it's the same thing he had the second time. It's a simple operation and it went good. Yeah. But like Prabhupada said, when he was really getting ready to leave and he couldn't eat and he became so thin and devotees kept begging him, don't leave. And Prabhupada said, don't you understand what I've been teaching you all this time, that everybody's body wears out, you have to leave. So we're all waiting in line, We never know when we're going to be called up to the front of the line. Right? I don't know if it ever happened to you. A few times in Thailand or Indonesia where they have respect for monks. I was in line at the airport and somebody came out and said, come with me, and they take me to the front, because you're a monk. They want to give you some facility. So we don't know when Yamaraj is going to say you come to the front of the line or Krishna. It's time for you, you finish your work here. You made it enough trouble on earth, now you can get out. So we don't know. So we have to be always practicing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Anyone else? We didn't get Ganachakshusha's group today. Sometimes he gets them all right, I saw the African Sankirtan newsletter. I don't know what month it was, but Nigeria did what, 1,200 books or something? Quite nice. Good to hear. And Ghana, pretty good. I think Togo did a lot of books because I get reports many days on the Facebook, but they didn't give the report to the newsletter. But that's very good. That's what we need to do. And Harinam is going good. And Ghana got an amazing donation from Mr. Lakhani have a big tractor with all the equipment to go with it. So I was thinking maybe that will inspire some of the boys to go on the farm because they like to drive the big tractor. But Maharaj, I wanted to talk to you. We should make sure that that tractor, you know, we use it to help the local people around because it's very valuable, and, you know, the people might be envious, but if the devotees offer it for service to help the other farmers, then they'll all be happy. And Mr. Lakhani is really determined that they grow all their food and do everything. So he's been talking for years about helping and never really did anything very much. But all of a sudden he's just, I guess he realizes he's not going to live very long, but he's really got good ideas. So anything can happen, you know. We just keep trying and keep preaching and keep visiting and, you know, and keep distributing books, and Krishna's in control. All right. Any more information, comments, questions? Everybody satisfied? So the women tried to be like Draupadi. And when the Pandavas got lost in the gambling match, and then Draupadi convinced them that they couldn't bet her because they already lost everything. And she went with them, and she let her hair down. She never fixed her hair. The women in Vedic culture, they never let their hair down except in the bedroom or when their husband dies, the funeral. You're crying. But she said, my hair is going to be down until all the Kaurava woman hair is down. In other words, all the men are dead. And that's what happened. She's so powerful. But the message there that Prabhupada gives is the whole disaster for the Kauravas is because of that terrible offense to Draupadi. So be very careful how you treat the Mahārajis, boys. You know, your wives are Mahārajis, and your children, you know, be very, very careful because they're devotees. So we have to treat them like devotees, not as my property, my wife, or my child. No, it's Krishna's. And wives, honor your husbands also, like they did. Gandhari honored her husband. Draupadi, Kunti, you know, she wouldn't have had to go with the boys because they were grown up when they were, when they went to that house of Lakshmi. Draupadi went with them also. So Sita went with Ram. Jai. All right. Thank you very much for calling me.
Hare Krishna. So at this point, we ask all the devotees to unmute and then.
Hari Chakra, Haribol, Hari. Is he still in Ghana or is he back to?
No, he's in the States.
Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare 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 Rama. Hare 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 Hare. Jai Gurudev.
Chandra Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Patitanam Pavanam
Hare.
Thank you all for being here today. Tomorrow will be another beautiful day.